Sounds
All
great.
right, perfect. Okay. All right. So now it's my turn to ask questions,
All right.
and it's your turn to ignore the questions and talk about whatever you want to talk about, right? So
That's what
original
happens.
sin, which I liked a lot. You want to talk about that at all?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'd love
go.
to.
Go for it.
So, it's a book about Joe Biden, President Biden's decline, and the degree to
Yeah.
which that was kept from the American people, and how
Right.
the original sin of his presidency and the disaster that unfolded for the Democrats in 2024 was the fact that he decided to run for re-election to begin with.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
deeply reported book by me and my co-author Alex Thompson about, we talked to more than 200 people about everything. It was
So,
very.
but why would that be controversial with anybody, honestly? You know what I mean? Seriously, folks. I know there was some heat there, which is kind of crazy to me, but
Well, I think two reasons. One, I think that there is a big reason, and look, this was how Biden justified it to everybody was that Joe Biden, the Democratic argument is Joe Biden on his worst day is better than Donald Trump on his best. And so like that's
uh-huh.
their argument. The problem is that that's not how, the American people
Yeah,
saw it.
right.
And then there's a chunk
So
of the
that
American.
argument doesn't really work.
No, certainly
Yeah,
not. Certainly
yeah.
not. And that the polls indicated that. And then I think also there's just for me as an avatar of legacy media, there's a degree to which I can't say or do anything without people criticizing it. That's just part of,
Okay. Uh-huh.
as Hyman
Yeah,
Roth
yeah,
said in
yeah.
The Godfather, this is the business we've chosen. And there's a degree to which
Uh-huh.
I can say, giving to this charity is good and people will attack it. So, I mean, there's also
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exhausting. So, all right, let's talk about your career, whatever, how confusing it is to me. So you go to Dartmouth and you're
Yep.
studying history,
Yep.
but you're also studying visual arts and you're also doing cartoons,
Doing
right?
comic strip. Yeah. Comic
Right.
strip
So,
for the,
so what was going on there? You have a lot of
I,
interest.
a lot of interest. I wanted to be a cartoonist. I wanted to be this cartoon. This is a Pogo comic right here
Okay. Oh,
behind
that's
me.
interesting. Right there. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and there's a whole wall of them behind me, in front of me rather. And yeah, I wanted to be a comic strip cartoonist. I loved Pogo and Little Abner and Doonesbury and others. And
Were you doing cartoons in the student press
yeah,
there? And okay.
for the daily, I did comic strip for the Daily Dartmouth. And by junior and senior year, I was doing five a week,
Uh-huh.
which is how often the paper came out, which was, demanding, but also really fun and thrilling.
Uh-huh.
But the truth of the matter is that comic strips as an American art form, well, first of all, I didn't succeed. That's number one. But then
Yeah.
beyond that, comic strips as an American art form are sadly not where they once were, in the same way that newspapers are not what they once were.
Right.
But I got close to getting a comic strip syndicated, but close, doesn't matter much.
No, not succeeding. That's kind of cool because we don't usually talk about that stuff with people. So what did that mean in your own head? You just saw that this avenue wasn't much of an avenue, or
Well, and no, it meant that I came up with a comic strip idea. I'm sorry about my dog barking there. I came up with an idea for a comic strip, and I submitted it to a bunch of syndicates. This is how
yeah,
I think it's still how it's done.
yeah,
There's a Universal Press Syndicate, King Features, etc.
right,
And one syndicate, Universal Press Syndicate out of Kansas City, they're the ones that do Doonesbury. A guy named Lee Salem, who's no longer with us, was interested, and I
hmm
met with him, and he asked for, like, I'd submitted like 24, and he asked
yeah,
for more, and I submitted more. And ultimately, they pick up like three or four a year. And ultimately, like I was in the outer loop of the
right.
winners, but like not, I didn't make it. And then I kept trying and kept trying, but then by then I had to start looking for work, because
You know,
I,
you could still, it would be kind of fun. I mean, I know we'll get into your novels. I actually have one right here, the older one, The Devil May Dance. Yay.
yeah,
Um, but in theory, I mean, you could write it's kind of fun and different. A newspaper guy who's the detective story, whatever the hell, but he's a cartoonist, and you could have a dozen cartoons in the book.
yeah.
Uh,
No, I
that'd
feel
be kind of fun. That'd be
I,
fun.
when I did,
I haven't seen that before, so that would be a neat one.
but that's also, that takes, publishers are very reluctant to, I mean, You're
No,
such
no,
a
no, 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 no,
you're
no,
such
no,
a
no.
heavyweight that I don't know if anybody ever tells you no anymore for anything. But like publishers,
My wife Sue tells me no to everything.
well, that's how you know that's why you're successful because you have somebody in your life who says that and does that.
Right.
But I've tried to introduce art in books before, and it's very seldom accepted. So now, actually, I am now writing a graphic novel, and I do have a publisher
Uh-huh.
for that. It is
Uh-huh.
nonfiction. It's the story of. Do you remember the Nazi Klaus Barbie, who was found in Bolivia in
Yeah.
found in the 70s
Right.
and he
Yeah.
was extradited to France in the 80s. So it is the story, it is his story. It is and it's
Hmm.
I'm telling that in a graphic novel form. So
Uh-huh.
that's actually fun.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, no, fun is useful. So anyway, just following this confused career, so you go to a public relations firm, but it's run by a Democrat and a Republican.
That's right. Yeah, Jody
How did that
Powell.
work?
Well, because
I kind of like it. I like that. Yeah.
PR firms, I mean, it's smart because it's just that way that way no matter who's in who's winning in terms of the party, your firm can have a foot in the door. It was interesting. I did it for like 2 or 3 years when I was in my early 20s, and it was just fun to see. Jody Powell was one of the heads of the firm. Jimmy
Yeah.
Carter's legendary press secretary, great guy, just a
Hmm.
classic archetype
Yeah. Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Gravel
Sheila
voice,
Tate.
smoking, drinking,
All right.
good
Okay.
old boy from Georgia.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jody Powell was the one of the heads of the firm. Sheila Tate, who was Nancy Reagan's press secretary, was the Republican side. So I did that for a few years. I didn't want to do that for a living. I'm not
Sure.
good at PR. It was just a way to pay the bills until something creative happened, whether a screenplay or a novel or a comic strip or whatever. And I was trying a million different things. I came up with a comic strip for alternative newspapers, and this entailed me getting the list of the 80 to 90 alternative newspapers in the country and individually mailing them a comic strip idea that was like an alternative weekly comic strip idea. It was called Max Zeitgeist 20 something detective, and yeah, I mean, I was just
Yeah.
trying anything I could, and then ultimately I ended up getting a full-time job as a journalist with Washington City paper. Ultimately, the
Hmm.
comic strips and the fiction writing, I also started doing some nonfiction writing. And it's a lot easier to write nonfiction than fiction in this world in terms of selling it. There are many more
Yeah.
outlets where you can sell nonfiction stories. There are
Uh-huh.
many newspapers, magazines, et cetera. This is even before the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's certainly true for you right now, I think. So then after this, we're going to skip over these spokesman for
Do I
Hooters
get to
for a
ask?
while.
No, no, no. The Hooters thing. Let me clarify that because that gets
Dated
thrown that
Monica
gets
Lewinsky. We're going to pass over that one.
I can talk about any of this. The
No, it's all
Hooters
good. Yeah.
the Hooters thing
Hooters.
was part of the PR firm. That was the
Oh,
thing.
okay. Okay. Okay.
So
All right. Okay. All
so
right.
what happened was some of
So we're
the
just going to just one cent on that one. Okay.
we
Okay.
I'm happy to talk about it. Hooters in so this is when I was working for Powell Tate, and Hooters was being threatened with a lawsuit. This is in the God, like 93 or something like no,
Uh-huh.
no, not mid 90s. Hooters was being threatened with a lawsuit by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for not hiring men as Hooters girls. That was the law. So I was a account executive, a junior, very low on the totem pole, and I worked on this account. And there's some Baltimore Sun story somewhere that refers to me as Hooters spokesman Jake Tapper,
Oh, okay.
and
All right. We found that. Yeah.
that that has been that is a bit, but
It's,
it was honestly it was a very fun. It was part of my
I'm
PR.
sure it was. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a book. I'm not going to sell my books, but Disrupt Everything and Win in October. And it's basically about disruption in the world and how
We'll have
overwhelming
you
it
on.
is
We'll talk
and
about
how
it.
to
Yeah.
deal with it
Yeah.
in a positive way. And it's very useful. I mean, you got a book, Atomic Habits, and that's kind of cool. You're going to change some habits. This kind of says, oh, what are you going to do with the habits? Because you're either going to be disrupted or you're either going to disrupt or you're going to get disrupted. So you
Right.
can make your choice. At any rate, so taking that notion to CNN,
Yeah.
um, which I think needs to be seriously disrupted, which is hard, and I'm sure they think about that all the time. So if you had to make a change, if you had to make one change, and then you can skip anything you don't want to deal with. What would you change at CNN? I don't want to get you in trouble, but
No,
don't
no.
get
I
rid
mean,
of the big boss. That'd be a bad idea.
no, no. Look. I think that the challenge for anybody, forget the CNN of it. It's
Sure.
anything
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
having to do with
We can make
broadcasting.
this about MSNBC if you
No, no,
want.
no. I just mean like the CNN's challenge is the same as everybody in broadcast news is challenged, whether it's Fox or MSNBC. Although less because they have their business model is to preach to the choir, right? Their business model
Yeah,
is ideological fan service. So it's more like CNN has the same challenge that ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS have, CNBC maybe, in terms
yeah,
of the world is moving away from cable. The world is moving away from television,
yeah,
broadcast television. It's moving towards streaming. It's more moving towards phones. So what do you do, and how do you get people to pay attention? And
yeah,
I think the challenge that we have at CNN is the same that is facing others in our same boat, which is um, how do we reach people where they are when they're cutting the cord? And I think that one of the ways to do I sometimes wonder what if my news broadcast looked more like what we're doing right now?
yeah.
What if it looked more like this? What if
Forget
it
it
were
looked like, talked like. For me,
right,
CNN, such as it is, it's still stuck in the 50s and 60s. It's people talking at you, talking
right,
heads, taking themselves super seriously all the time, for the most part, and just talking at you, talking at you. And cable. I mean, weird ideas for cable. You go on CNN, and the other end crashes off, and you have nobody on there who's over 30, and you got a irreverent sports thing. It's kind of irreverent, but once again, it's preaching to a choir, but the choir are sane people.
right,
And you can be a sane conservative, you can be a sane, you're just sane. You're just not a nutcase,
right,
you know. And talking to people and having fun with it. And if you're doing your fourth day of this terrible thing that happened in Texas, you recognize that to a certain point, it's like, okay, we're just repeating the same shit here over and over and over and over again. And I know the clicks, I guess, force you to keep doing it, but no, that's not good. But this is kind of serious. Talking heads. I know, now we'll put four talking heads in a room and think that that's different. you know.
right,
Um, yeah, but the tone, Fox has at least they bring some humor in. So I mean, you may or may not find it funny, but they do that. CNN are not ESPN. They're in their own kind of world.
right,
But it's always a choir. I just don't. I think there is a choir, but nobody's talking to that choir. The choir of just sane
right.
folks, whatever. Yeah.
So how do you reach those people? And a lot
You
of those
go you
people,
go online and you have this, nobody over 30, but and about once a week you try to get them. You put something on mainline CNN. You got to watch this thing, and it's not like a rock concert for people who are 70 and 80 years old, which seems
yeah.
to be their current thing now. Like, oh, that'll save us. We'll put on, the Live Aids thing or whatever, which nobody under 50 even knows what the hell
Oh,
that
if
is.
you're talking about the 50th
And that's
anniversary
fine.
of
It's
Live
okay.
Aid.
There's nothing
Yeah.
terrible about it.
Well,
Anyway, but yeah, but
I,
I would love to see. I'd love to see networks start to save themselves a little bit. And I know it's complicated and hard and whatever. But part of it is you just have to really be. I mean, this is the thing about disrupt everything and win. Blow it up. I don't. When I say it's not blowing up in the Musk way. My thing is move fast, consider everything, repeat. Move fast, consider everything honestly,
right,
and eventually you come up with one or two or three things. You go, you know what? That's pretty friggin' interesting. I mean, that's what I do anyway. Here's something that I love. You did some reporting about Pentagon changes impacting caregivers, which
yeah,
is fabulous. And a Pentagon spokesman said, "We want to thank Jake for bringing it to our attention because we have not seen the unintended consequences of what we were doing. You brought it to our attention, and we're able to get it changed in a week, which is
yeah.
terrific. And
That
maybe
was
that's a,
satisfying.
maybe that's a direction for CNN. We don't just talk about it; we change shit."
Yeah, I mean, it's that
Which
was
is
really
fun. I don't mean that seriously, but I love it that yeah, you're going to get something done, and you did get it done.
well. It was really interesting. So I went to an event at the British Embassy, and they were honoring American soldiers, and there was a wounded veteran. He was no, he's not a veteran. He was still in the military,
Uh-huh.
and his caregiver, he and his nurse had fallen in love, and and she would travel from North Carolina where she lived to visit him at Walter Reed, and then all of a sudden there was this change in the rule where they weren't reimbursing her for her trip, and she was a
Hmm.
caregiver for a soldier. And what had happened was they had changed the rules because they were trying to dissuade colonels and majors from going on trips and just like
Hmm.
and just like living on the road forever, and it inadvertently hurt that caregiver. And so when I brought this to their attention, we were going to do a story on it. They said, can you hold the
Yeah.
story for one day? Let me look into it. We did, and they changed the rule, so it ended up being a good news story that we had them change the rule. That was,
Hmm.
yeah, that was during the Obama
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm always trying, and maybe unsuccessfully. I did a book recently, How to Be a Better Dad in 1 hour.
Yeah.
How to be the best dad you can be in 1 hour. And I don't care. And that's not a moneymaker for me, but it's just I really thought that one, these guys will not read the 400-page book, and that we talked about it actually,
Yeah.
and I can put together in an hour, and I can talk to them in guide talk, and make it engaging and entertaining and a little funny and whatever, and it can actually help guys a lot, and they need help because they're a lot of them are just lost in space and whatever the hell, or this um, um, the thing that I mentioned before about we're disrupting everything and when not not to make money, but just that could be helpful to people
Yeah.
because the world is disrupting, or your company's disrupting. You're all of a sudden where you used to work, it's 50% robots. Wow, the robots are you know what I mean. So there's
The
so
que-
many
the que-
things like that.
yeah, the question for CNN is how do you disrupt without also alienating the people that come and watch every day? Like how do you
They'll be
segue?
okay. They'll cool. They'll be cool. They'll be happy about good. I don't know. Part of it, that's why that CN and under 30 and whatever, because that's hopefully going to start, and maybe some of them eventually switch on to CNN. I don't know. Here's a line that I love that you came up with, and I'm sure there are gazillions of them. This is the 2020 presidential election debate. And I love this. This to me is writing, and you're a very good writer because I've read your novels.
Thank you. I know you've been
But
very
you said
supportive.
a hot mess inside a dumpster fire inside a train wreck.
Well,
Wow.
that was that debate. I was trying to come up with how bad it was. It was
Yeah.
so awful. It was in many ways like it felt like emotional abuse watching that debate. Felt like,
Hmm.
like I felt like probably a lot of people out there were being triggered by just
Yeah.
how aggressive and toxic the whole thing felt. But here we are again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we
Yeah.
are
But
again.
we keep coming back to the same.
James,
But
am I allowed to ask you any
I love
questions in
that
this?
writing. I love that. It's really, and maybe that's another piece of it. More better writing. You know, a funny thing. I was on the Daily Show um, with President Clinton, and I was talking backstage about him. I said, "Do you have a writer's room?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "Well, how many are in your writer's room?" They said, 17.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
that's a lot of
It's a
people.
half-hour show.
Yeah.
And it's a good a lot of good language in there, but wow. And they talk about me. Speaking of which, so getting back to Original Sin,
Yeah.
and this is a question that I've been dying to ask somebody because I get asking, so how the hell does this collaboration work?
Well, you collaborate all the time.
I know.
So the way that I worked on it with Alex, so Alex and I we're metabolistically very similar, which is probably similar to how you work also, which is we're always working, always, just
Hmm.
nonstop, always working. And um, you and I think we've talked about this, but for me, when it comes to writing a book, structure is the most important part of the whole process. I mean, first is the idea, and the idea is the most important thing, including the title. But
You're
then
going to
beyond,
forget the second important thing here,
which
but go
is,
ahead.
well,
Char- Character.
character, right? So, but that's fiction and nonfiction. But the char,
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is both. Yeah.
so
Good nonfiction anyway.
yeah,
Well, the best of the nonfiction in terms of it being hits and readable or whatever, they really do give you a sense of character.
So
Churchill. They're
that's
going to really,
that
interesting,
that was why it was important for me in terms of the original Sin book to have a chapter early on explaining Biden's character and
Yeah,
why he thought he could fight through anything because he had
yeah.
had so many horrible things happen to him throughout
But
his
that
life.
character, in theory, once you establish that, that drives the whole book
Right, right,
because that's him.
right,
That's okay, for better or worse, and it should be in every chapter, and not every chapter, but that's him. That's who it is. You don't know who this guy is. Very strong-willed. I don't think people understand how strong-willed he is,
right.
or a lot of
And
people don't.
determined to prove everybody wrong and determined to show that nothing can beat him. That if he gets knocked up, he can get up off the floor. So that was an
Yeah,
important part of it. But anyway, Alex
yeah.
and we came up with the structure of the book, and then
Hmm.
we would just we made a list of all the people we wanted to talk to, and we started interviewing them. We had a very tight deadline on this. We started interviewing them and writing the book at the same time, and then just adding writing chapters and passing them back and forth, and writing chapters and passing them back and forth, and we just worked really well together in terms of whatever was best for the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
was the most important thing.
Yeah. I have a nonfiction which is coming out. I don't know when this is going to run, but it'll be somewhere in that area. The Idaho Four, which is about the murders out in
Oh,
Idaho,
The
and
Koberger murders.
yeah,
Yeah.
David Ellison was interested in, and we have a deal with um, Skydance, his company or his film company, and he was interested in it. At first, I didn't want to really write it. I wasn't, and then I talked to Vicky Ward, and Vicky and I did it together, and we started talking about making it about that town and the people in the town, and that gave it its character and its voice.
Yeah.
And the voice became, we don't want a sensationalist thing. We don't want to, oh, Kohlberger is such a genius. Well, he is smart, but we want it to be about character. And In Cold Blood was a model, something of a model for us, except that we weren't going to fall in love with Kohlberger like Truman fell in love with
Right.
whatever. That wasn't going to be part of it. But that voice of we're gonna put you in that town. You're gonna understand what it was like that next day in that town when this news came out. You're gonna understand. We got three of the families to cooperate, which was
Oh,
great,
wow. Yeah.
and it became very, very, especially for Vicky, who did a lot of the interviews, and we did 300 over 300 interviews, which, as you know from your book, that's a lot of
It's a
freaking
lot.
interviews.
That's a lot of interviews.
And one of the things now is with the trial, and we're going to go out and talking to people about it, next week or this week, and I guess it's next week. And in terms of the trial not happening, everything that you would have learned in the trial is in this book
Oh, okay.
and
Great.
more, because a lot of the stuff that's in the book, they would have somehow, the lawyers wouldn't have let it in. Like we have a lot of information about Kohlberger at Washington State as a teaching assistant and how he believed that no women should be in that program. He was in a position as a teaching assistant to grade them. He gave the women terrible grades. So there's a lot of information, and that I don't think that would have got. I think they wouldn't have let that into the trial. But there's
So
a lot. But
he was a
yeah,
misogynist. I mean, that was his
oh yeah,
motivation.
that's a piece of it. It seems that yeah. Incel, heavy duty incel.
Oh, really?
Studied,
Oh,
no, it studied. I forget the guy's name, but but once again, getting to the voice and what's the voice going to be? I mean, the Biden thing to me is fascinating in a sense of, yeah, let's kind of lay out who this guy is because people don't understand. I'm not saying he's not a bad guy,
he made some bad decisions, but yeah, it was. But that was
yeah,
a.
well, yeah, there it is. I mean, Trump. I mean, I thought about a Trump thing and I said, nah, it's too complicated. The left will hate me, the right will hate me. It won't be good. But complicated, and don't people sit there and go, he's just a fool. No, a lot more complicated than
Oh
that.
no, he's not a fool.
Yeah.
He's not a. It's fair to say he's not a reader, but he's not a
No, he was
fool.
not a reader. Yes, right.
One thing from the book that we discovered that you would find interesting, particularly James, is the we came to the conclusion after all of our reporting that he had been deteriorating a bit since 2015 when his oldest son Bo died.
Yeah.
And that was when people first saw some deterioration. And since then, he had been, aging as happens and having bad moments and okay moments, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah,
then the next two moments where he really had serious deterioration were in the summer of 2023 when Hunter's plea deal fell through,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then in June 2024 when Hunter was convicted of the gun charges in Delaware. And what we discovered was that it wasn't so much that Hunter was going through it as much as or even that he was afraid Hunter was going to go to jail because he was always going to pardon him anyway. But the idea that he was worried that Hunter was going to either relapse into addiction or take
yeah,
his own life. And Hunter was talking very openly about that. They're trying to drive me
yeah,
to suicide. They're trying to drive. And what we have here is because of the 1972 accident where his wife and daughter were killed, you have a man here whose deterioration is based in many ways on the fact that he is terrified that he's going to lose a third child.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah,
what
yeah.
that is what caused his decay, his emotional
Uh-huh.
decay, and his
Yeah,
intellectual decay. And it was really poignant and really sad, but also very consequential to the country.
sure. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Quickly, I know you got stuff to do. The novels, and I've read, I think, all of your novels. I think they're quite good.
Thank you.
Tell us about well, whatever. Tell us about Charlie Martyr.
Charlie Martyr is the protagonist of my first two books. As you know, you've always been such a generous supporter of my fiction. The first one's the Hellfire Club. The second one is The Devil May Dance, and the third one is about it's more about Charlie and Margaret's kids, Ike and Lucy. And Charlie is a World War II veteran who has post-traumatic stress, although they didn't even have a name for it back then. He
Yeah,
self-medicates through booze. And he's always trying to do the right thing, but he finds himself in Washington, D.C., constantly having to make compromises. And the Devil May Dance is about him going out to Hollywood. He and Margaret, his wife, are basically blackmailed into trying to figure out if, on the behest of the Kennedy administration, whether Frank Sinatra is actually mobbed up or
uh-huh.
if it's just an act. And so I think
Can
of the
something be both things?
yeah.
No, just
No,
kidding.
yeah, no, it can be both.
Yeah,
It can be both.
yeah.
And but right now I'm working with some folks in Hollywood. You go through this sometimes
Mm.
and have you've had such great success. But
Yeah.
we're trying to turn the second book, The Devil May Dance, into a streamer, into a TV show. So wish me luck with that. We'll see what
The
happens. Have you
Hollywood thing. Somebody was telling me a story recently about The Walking Dead and how originally CBS had been developing that for 4 years. And it seemed like, even the people who are developing is like, I don't know, CBS, is it really going to, and no, 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 we're going to do it. We need to get younger viewers. We need to get younger viewers. And then finally it's Pusher, or, whatever. And they go, okay, well, we will want to do it, but there's one change, and this is not negotiable. No zombies. There's
That
Hollywood.
can't be true. That can't be true.
That's
That's
beautiful. Listen to that. I don't
that
know.
can,
I think it is. I think it
it's so
is.
well. That didn't
I
end up on
listen. I've
CBS. It ended up
experienced.
on
I
ended up
just
on
had
what?
one. I
Yeah.
just had one that was almost as goofy as that. I won't get into it because
Which was what?
it was another one that was almost as goofy
You
in
won't tell me
terms
the
of like
details.
what? No, maybe sometime
What about
another year.
what are you most proud of in terms what are you
Yeah.
happiest with in terms of the adaptation to the
No,
screen?
you're not asking questions.
Oh,
Across
yeah, the new one.
the new one, yeah, because
It's
it's
great.
it's more current. It's truer to real life in Washington. And Aldous is perfect. I mean, look, Morgan Freeman is spectacular. But in terms of what Cross is, the key to Cross is, and we all, well, not most of us deal with the conflict between our family life and our
Yeah.
jobs. That's Alex's real cross. I mean, his own cross to bear. And then it didn't work with Morgan in the sense of that it works with Aldous. And Aldous, as a detective, he's incredibly intense. He's just intense. His face, everything about him. And but he's great with the kids. so you really get that balance between his, what he's doing, and as I said, it's just closer to real. I mean, the series started a long time ago, and and I still like doing them, but I like that series, and that's kind of the first one. I'll tell you what, this documentary for the Idaho murders is great. We did one on Filthy Rich, and I thought it was adequate at best. 100 million people saw it, but I thought it was like, eh. This one it's really good. It's very emotional. It's not sensationalism. I think it's really, first class. At any rate, so in terms of your future, I'm just curious about, you have so many paths. You got your CNN, you got your nonfiction, your fiction, your comic strips, Hooters maybe again. What? So what's next?
So I have another nonfiction book coming out in October called Race
Yeah,
Against Terror. It's a true story of it starts on the deck of a ship, of an Italian cruise ship in the Mediterranean, 2011. Berlusconi, the prime minister, has commandeered all these cruise ships because the Arab Spring is creating this refugee crisis. So they're taking all these refugees from the southern Italian islands to the mainland, and a guy walks up to an Italian soldier and says, "Water." He demands water. Guy's like 5'6", African guy. He's got scars on his arm. The soldier asks him, "Where'd you get the scars?" And he goes, "I got them fighting Americans. I'm in Al Qaeda." And from then, the Italians basically take him into a room. They start interrogating him. The guy has a long story about his time in Al Qaeda and how he killed Americans in Afghanistan. They call the Americans. They say, "We have this guy here. We can't hold him for much longer. We can hold him for like a couple months, maybe. Do you want him? Have you
yeah,
heard of him?" The Americans say, "We'll be right there." They go there. He is who he says he is. And now there's a ticking clock. The Americans have to prove who he is in so that it's good enough to bring to a court of law, because this is during the Obama years. There's no more Gitmo, there's no more military commissions.
right.
Uh, or this guy's going to get out and commit mass murder. So it's a story of how the
Mhm.
sleuthing took place, how they tracked
Uh-huh.
down, how they proved the case against this Al Qaeda killer. And that comes out in October.
Oh, that sounds. I like that. I'll read. I'll read.
Okay, cool.
Um,
We'll send you
I think
one.
that's good.
And
We
then I
good?
the
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
Butcher of Lyon graphic novel. And
Yeah.
after that, I'm just like I'm toying with some ideas about
When will the graphic novel be finished?
oh God, I don't know. It
Okay.
takes a
Those
long
are
time.
tricky. Tell the story, draw the story. Yeah, that's hard. Yeah.
Well, the I have the plot outlined, but then it's
Yeah.
like then you have to write it for a comic page
Yeah.
where fewer words are better and more
Yes.
pictures are better. And then you have to draw it, and then you have to ink it, and then you have to
Uh-huh.
color it in. It is a
Uh-huh.
much more arduous process than writing anything I've ever written. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
not in terms of the just in terms of how long it takes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Luckily,
Uh-huh.
there's no ticking time bomb on that one. And then I
Uh-huh.
don't know. I want to write another fiction, but I don't know what. I have an
You
idea
know,
for one.
ideas are, I give you, I mean, something where you can tell somebody in a couple of sentences. I have a thing coming out, I think it's next year, The First Nazi. And I don't know if you heard this story, but way back in Munich in the 30s, Hitler was accused of having murdered his girlfriend niece in her 20s, beautiful girl. True story. And The papers in Munich were all over it, and the Nazis were all over the papers, literally destroying papers because you get that story out. And one reporter stayed with it, and his paper got destroyed. And eventually, Hitler sent the guy to Dachau. True
Really?
story. Yeah, 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 yeah. And so this thing, we sort of do a Robert Harris, where I literally in the first few chapters, I have Hitler murdering this woman. And then we go from there, and we have this anyway. So it's a cool story, and
Wow.
we deal with this. Well, I created a policeman to take us through the story a little bit, and he's an interesting cop in that he's German, but his wife is Jewish, which is very credible in those days back then,
Yeah.
and his family then, of course, all his kids are Jewish in the
Yeah.
eyes of so he's going to take us through this story, and he's going to deal. He becomes friendly with this one news journalist who winds up in Dachau, which really happened.
That's
And it ta-
fascinating.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's what I mean in terms of like, yeah, that's cool. I want to read that sucker. So
I'm
that's always helpful.
So the idea I have for my next book is a congresswoman who accidentally kills a reporter and then but gets away with it,
Hmm.
and then realizes, and the reporter he was a bad guy, he was a bad reporter, sleazy, horrible person, and
Hmm.
then realizes that she can get away with murder,
Hmm.
and starts killing people that she thinks are bad people in Washington D.C.
Hmm.
With the help of her former platoon sergeant in Afghanistan.
Hmm.
That's what I have. So it's a congresswoman ridding the world of.
Okay, okay, okay. Oh, bad people. Yeah, that's in the air these days.
Yeah,
Luigi, whatever. Yeah. Okay, perfect. We're good.
yeah. Thank you so much,
Okay. Well,
James. This
we'll
was
try to turn it around one of these days, and you can ask all the questions,
That's
and
right.
then
Well, we'll have you back for your next book.
I'll talk about.